Hey, what's good, peoples? I thought I'd add a little extra something, right? So, I've been watching these Melle Mel interviews, right, with Vlad, which I think were very, very funny. And I love that Melle Mel is speaking the truth in a lot of these places, you know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily agree with him, but I do think that he's speaking the real and he's speaking shit that needs to be fucking heard. So, let's clear up a couple of things, or at least here's my opinion on certain things that he's saying. Him being able to battle Eminem, sorry, that's delusional. That's delusional. I'm sorry, Melle Mel. Like, I fuck with you, man. I respect you as a legend and an icon, but I don't think that you would survive with Eminem. Only because I think that Eminem's flow is obviously more modern. A big issue I have with Melle Mel is I think his flow is stuck in '79, and that flow to me was dated. Like, I mean, by the time Houdini and Run DMC came along, especially Houdini, I think Houdini just like made that shit, they fucking stepped it up. That's all I'll say on that. Like, you listen to that old, like, but da like, there's a way that they rhymed back then that I just is like, I can't fuck with it, man. Honestly, like, I can listen to it, I can respect it for what it is, and that they're the first to lay it down. But Melle Mel, like, on the verse, he did a verse on the K-Slay thing recently that was whatever. So for him to say that he could beat Eminem, like, how? Like, Eminem, as whack as Eminem is, Eminem has he has some talent, obviously. And like, Eminem, if he's given a decent beat and decides that he wants to make music that isn't aimed at 11-year-old school shooters, Eminem can actually probably come up with something decent. And I'm not sure that Melle Mel can. Because Melle Mel, I'm sure, is a smart guy, and you can see that he has an intellect, but his flow, unless he works on his flow, man, like, that shit is going to sound horrible. I'm talking, again, if this is a diss track, back and forth. But they're also completely different eras, so it's like, I don't know. It's a weird comparison, all things considered, anyway. So that's that. The second thing is when he was talking about Biggie and how Biggie wouldn't have been able to survive back then because of what Biggie was saying. And I do think it's an interesting comment. I think Melle Mel is actually right in a lot of ways, but it does raise the point as to why older heads, you can't compare people from Melle Mel's era to people like me who are considered an older head too, right? Because our beefs with hip-hop are very different. So, Melle Mel reminds me, in terms of what he's saying, he kind of reminds me of how my parents might look at hip-hop. My parents are in their 60s, 50s, 70s and shit like that. Those people who existed before hip-hop was even a thing, right? When they make sort of arguments against hip-hop, when they say certain things that they don't like about certain rappers, a lot of the times it comes from a place of content. Melle Mel is basically, saying that Biggie's content makes him, not so great. Right? And I think it's an interesting, perspective, because that's an older head thing, right? Where it's like, oh, I don't agree with what you're saying, so you're not as good. And it's valid. It is actually a valid, criticism, because I think sometimes we in the new school forget that you do have to watch what you say, and you do have to you have to think about what you're saying. I'm a big fan of saying whatever the fuck you want to say, and in a way not thinking about, like, who's going to be offended, but speak your truth. I'm a big believer in that, and I will always stand by that. However, you should be smart enough to also know that if you are going to speak your mind, you should be able to understand, A, if are there any consequences that are going to come with this, and B, are there any negative consequences, and are these negative consequences things that I could avoid, or things that I actually put out there that don't need to be put out there? Does that make sense? So if I'm on record talking about, I'm gonna blast this nigga when I see him, and I get blasted when he sees me, that's me putting negative shit out there. Da 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 da. I love that da 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 shit. I've always loved that in that beat. One of my favorite records ever. The shuffle of the drums. Anyway, so back to what I'm saying, right? Older heads, like, that's really their beef, right? Let me lower this a bit. So, like, for example, when I play rap, like, even around my parents sometimes, right? Like, my mom can bump Unbelievable. My mom likes Unbelievable. She doesn't know who the fuck Biggie is, doesn't listen to that shit. But if I played Unbelievable, my mom would be like, because the beat is ill. It's black music. You know what I'm saying? The shit rocks. The way Big is rapping on it is dope. Now, she's not gonna be down with, chickens in my bathroom fucking, like, that shit would irritate her. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the vulgarity of it is what would throw her off. And I understand that because that's how older people think. You know what I'm saying? Like, older people, I would argue, are of the opinion that vulgarity is not stuff to be talked about and mentioned. And again, I'm sort of, on one hand, I agree, on one hand, I totally disagree. On one hand, I think that you do have to be careful about when you're being vulgar. I think you should 100% be vulgar, but you should have some sort of responsibility to when you're being vulgar. So that's my opinion. And that, yes, being more positive and saying more positive shit can induce more positive behavior and things like that. So if you're being negative all the time with your rhymes, that's not healthy. I agree with that. However, I think the problem with some of the older folk, with actually a number of the older folk, is that they also believe in sweeping shit under the fucking rug. And our era did not play that, and we don't play that shit. If people are fucking out here getting shot, if people are out here doing drug deals, if people are glorifying their drug behavior, I want to hear about it, because that's real shit. Now, does that mean that that's all I want to hear about? Of course not. That's dumb, right? But the point is that you should never feel like someone can't say this or someone can't say that. Or, oh, that's happening, let me sweep that under the rug. Oh, that subject is uncomfortable, let's not talk about it. That's how older people think, and I don't like that. Now, again, back to why I was even mentioning this shit is that people in Melle Mel's age and older, like, when they have beef with hip-hop, it's a content thing. And we used to have these conversations. Again, that's why I think it's so interesting. Growing up in the 90s, I remember having conversations with elders or even older people being like, and they would say, oh, I don't like this genre because of what they say, the vulgarity. Now, you can't compare that older cat to me, okay? Now, I'm in my mid-30s. I'm an old head, according to especially the trolls in the comment section. My beef with hip-hop today has nothing to do with the content. Really, I mean, the content could be way better, sure. But my beef with hip-hop, number one, is that y'all sound the fucking same, right? Like, you literally are making whack-ass music, right? That's the problem. The problem is that you guys are not, you're not man enough, not woman enough to actually do your own thing, which is the quintessential thing about hip-hop, is to be you. So my discussion and my beef with hip-hop is you sound all the same, and on top of that, you sound terrible, right? You literally cannot fucking rap. Your beats do not slap, right? That's a different discussion. I'm not even saying don't rhyme about chicks on your dick or, gun busting. I'm saying literally on a music level, you're not dope, right? So you can't compare you can say, okay, it's just old head hating, whatever. Cool. But again, these are two different perspectives entirely. People in Melle Mel's era, they actually probably, if they were being honest with themselves, they could rock with the music. Or they could even listen to some of it, but they just didn't like the content. Me, I'm cool with the content. It's just that you guys cannot fucking rap. And that's something else entirely. That's me saying, like, look, listen, step your shit up. Be better as an artist, right? So yeah, anyway, just wanted to point that out. And that's why, to a certain degree, I think some of the people in the comment section were probably like, what the fuck? Like, why is Melle Mel even talking about this? Like, how could you even ignore the fact that Biggie was nice on the mic and all that? But it's like, well, yeah, you know what I'm saying? It sounds weird to you because you weren't around then. And like, you're new to hip hop in a way, right? And you're not of a certain age. I remember having those kind of conversations. Fuck, the first time I heard Big, I thought he was whack because he was rapping about champagne and chicks and shit. And I didn't get it. I was just kind of like, who cares? Literally, that was the first thing. And I was fucking like 13 at the time. Big had just died. I heard the song and I was like, why is he rapping about champagne? Who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking of this as a teen, right? Which is really interesting. It does show you where our minds were mentally a lot of times. In the 90s, as opposed to now. Now it's like a teenager just wants to hear about, oh yeah, I got the foreign and I'm wearing this and blah, blah, the ops. Like, they want to hear that fantasy bullshit. But for me as a kid, I was just kind of like, huh? Who cares? Right? And I thought Big was whack solely because of that. Not even because, you know, it had nothing to do with him being able to rap. And then, of course, when I heard Unbelievable and Kicking the Door, I was like, oh, now he's rapping about something other than, you know, the poppy sort of champagne-y thing. And actually, yeah, he is really nice. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? So the fact of the matter is that our beefs with hip-hop come from different places. And I think the Melle Mel interview is very, you know, crucial in explaining that shit. And I like that he's speaking his fucking mind on stuff. So I always look forward to it, man. Anyway. Deuce.